today we're going to be speaking about the subject that not everybody, not just uncomfortable talking about, but also avoiding talking about that because of their shame, because it's very, very close to them as well. And it's about sexless marriage. Today we have with us Dr. Sam, who is an expert in this area. And Dr. Sam, we're welcoming you back again to the show because we had lots of inquiries to talk about subject that no one is comfortable talking about. So let's talk about the sexless marriage. First of all, why people avoid talking about this, why the marriages are silent about that.
Well, it's so sad because in churches, all you hear about is sex without marriage is not good. Don't have sex without marriage. But we forget to say what God says, which is marriage without sex is not good either. It goes both ways. You just can't talk about casual sex not being not, but marriage without sex. So God talks about it in the scriptures where he says, look, I gave you this gift. Go for it. Enjoy it. I devoted the whole book of the Bible to it. Song of Solomon, 1 Corinthians chapter 7. So I'm not embarrassed to talk about it. And I'll talk about it as much as you want, but we should, pastors need to lead the way in terms of our messaging that, again, sex without marriage is not good. But in the same phrase, also what a segue to say marriage without sex is not good either, and to bring that up in your messages. Yes, from the pulpit.
I love what you said, and also like you talked about in your book, in your chapter about the libido, right? About this the special connection that men and women are having, and also you mentioned in your book that one partner usually has more sexual desires than the other one does. So, and then attractiveness usually dies when they're married. So where does it start, and how can the couples can preserve that attractiveness to each other?
Well, some people are just in shock. Is this the person that I dated? They couldn't get their hands off of me. They were so affectionate, and what the heck happened? Sometimes, one of the two people, builds up resentment over little things, and they view that sex is a reward that I give to him or her if they're a good boy or girl. If they're good, they get sex as a reward. And then there's other people who come into the marriage saying sex is a right. I need to have my needs met, and you are the person. And no matter what mood you're in, it doesn't matter. So between you have one person who views sex as a right that should always be exercised versus a reward that's only when the other person's a good boy or girl. You're going to have major sparks fly when a lot of times couples don't have the right perception, biblical perception, or they now I'm not now first it's important we realize we're talking about emotional reasons, not medical reasons. We're not talking about that the lady or husband does not have sex because medically, physiologically they can't. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about emotionally, no soup, no soup for you. And sexless marriage is pretty much identified as having sex like 1 month, once a month. Anything less than once a month, people typically say they're involved in a more sexless marriage where it's one day or night out of 30, 31. And it's just, I meet couples that are just they just want to die. So one of them wants to die. They don't want to divorce because that's not the right thing to do. And they just want to die because nothing they do has ever made their wife or husband attracted toward them or affectionate toward them. And they're just dying inside.
In your book, you also mentioned about the so-called refund policy. So, and you also mentioned that if the men and women while they're dating would know what it would look like during the marriage, if there's a refund possible. So, what temptations do usually men or women face when they have a sexless marriage? Because I know there's some couples they go month and month without even having this affection with each other. So, were there any dangers when they do that?
Well, God talks about it in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 says, he says to married couples, do not withhold from each other. Do not withhold, lest you be tempted. So we shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about it because he's has the courage to talk about it. So, unfortunately, the spouse in which there's no affection or sex or stimulation or touching, or just they just go to sleep by themselves sometimes, very sad. And then someone shows them some attention in the neighborhood or at work, you get tempted. They're thinking, why can't I have this? Or they see other couples that are being playful and they say, I wish I had that. So it just leaves a door wide open, for the evil one to come in and give you somebody that God didn't give you. God gave you your spouse. So, the temptation is real. And couples need to realize that's understandable. God talked about it. Don't blame the man or husband or wife because they were tempted. No, God talks about it as a result. So the spouse that's not being, having sex in marriage, they are so frustrated. You're the only person in the world I can be with. You're the only person in the world I want to be with. And the one person I'm allowed to be with, the only person out of 8 billion now that I'm allowed to be with is you. And you don't want me. That's so frustrating and humiliating. And husbands or wives, whichever one is being holding back or withholding, they need to realize how much it hurts their spouse when they will not initiate or even reciprocate sexual advances toward them. So it's frustrating and humiliating beyond words, where they feel that, oh, I must be chopped liver, and then they get tempted. So it's just a downward spiral that has to be talked about in the church.
That is so absolutely true. And we also know that devil is not hanging out in the bars and the casinos. He's hanging out with the marriages. His goal is to destroy them. And sometimes he's successful with that. Sometimes, it's not. And what would you recommend to the couples who are right now in the verge of getting divorced just because of this issue entered into their lives, and who can initiate the talk or healing process?
Well, my first thought is call me on my website because I will help. I've helped a lot of couples in which, husband or wife. I've even had couples where the wife was saying, honey, it's the kids are gone. It's my turn. I want to run around the house and get naked with you. And you're in the garage, piddling in the car, doing this, doing that. Do me, she said. Do me. I would fiddle with me. So a lot of it is realizing that, your spouse, they come first. And if your love language, and as I worked with this couple where, I was on the phone like in awe that I said to him, I said, do you have any idea how lucky you are? Do you have any idea that you have a wife? I have men who would pay $1 million to have a wife who would say, hey, let's run around the house naked. Let's do something. The kids are gone. Do you have any idea how lucky you are? And he was, his love language was different. He was more to do things for her. She wanted him to do things with her, in her, for her. Big difference in the preposition there. So I just explained to him, look, her love language is physical affection and touch, and yours is acts of service. Okay, but when you love somebody, you love them in their love language, not yours. And if your love language is not to be affectionate, it's to be doing things for them, that's good. But when you really love somebody, you put their needs first and you think about what they would feel like and how they reject it. They feel. And whether it be husband or wife, they just feel rejected and humiliated and they just die a slow death. And God doesn't want that to happen. He says in Corinthians 7, do not withhold from each other lest you be tempted. And then Song of Solomon goes on and on about, a husband and wife having marital relations frequently. So when I talk with couples, first pastors, make sure in your premarital counseling, you talk about this stuff. I would never marry a couple without talking about this stuff. A lot of stuff, actually. Because, I asked them, so how often do you guys want to have sex when you get married? What? Are you talking? Yeah, I'm talking about that. Yeah, because if you're thinking once a month and he's thinking once every 2 days, we're going to have some issues and you need to talk about them now ahead of time. So learning how to communicate is so important when it comes to this more touchy topic. There's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Yes, I agree. And this is something that we actually have to, like, raise up and talk about it. And we all know that the percentage rate of the divorce, the marriages end up in divorce like over 50%. And what do you think percentage contributes to this, when it comes to the sexless marriage and its outcome?
I think it's huge. I think a lot of people don't talk about it. They say that, well, we've gone our different ways. Well, if you're having sex more frequently, that's not a guarantee of everything, but chemicals are released where you become one with that person. And again, to go backwards, guys have got to get away from porn because porn teaches them that sex is all about themselves. Porn teaches them that love is not important when it comes to this. Porn teaches them that marriage is dispensable because I go somewhere else who's got bigger body parts. So to go backwards, the porn has got to be addressed. And I ask the guys and ladies, so tell me how much porn you do or did, because that's going to have a big part. And so if you're comparing her body, his body, to all the hundreds you've seen. And no wonder you're never going to be satisfied. No wonder she could, I don't care what she looks like, nothing would ever satisfy you. It's you. You know, so I just think it's super important that couples, make sure that they're upfront, that like the Bible verse we talked about before in Proverbs 5, may her breast satisfy you at all times, which means, wives, give your bodies to your husbands. What a gift he desires and wants. And when you don't give that body to him, he takes it personally as if he's not worth anything, that he's been rejected. And again, it's so frustrating. What do I do? The one person I can be with doesn't want me.
This is fascinating, the topic itself on its own. And, I wish we would have like hours and hours to talk about it. But guys, I want to recommend you to please go and grab the book by Dr. Sam, where he explicitly says and mentions and uses very intimate and relatable language to connect with every reader. And it's very soothing language there too, as well. It's not judgment. It's like giving you lots of healing, lots of support in his book as well. And Dr. Sam, what would you say in the beginning or at the end to our viewers right now who is probably watching us and secretly, struggling with a sexless marriage? What would be his first step, his or her first step to the healing process?
First, I would say, give that pain to God because people don't want to hear about your sadness as they think they do. You just need to just cry out to God saying, God, oh my goodness gracious, this hurt is so deep and only you can heal it. Because my husband or wife seems to be clueless when it comes to talking about this. So, number one, have your walk with God get a little closer because you hurt so bad, and understandably so. I mean, I know ladies who cry themselves to sleep because the husband's downstairs doing porn or watching or playing. And one lady said to me, "I waited my whole life for a preacher told me to wait and save myself for this. Like, hello, I want a refund. You know, this soulmate thing turned into a roommate. I want a soulmate. That's what I thought I was getting. It was a soulmate, not a roommate. All we are is roommates. So, so, and then to have a couple, to have someone who might help them, someone who's in the middle. But then just talk about it. You can use parts of my books or my website, healingsexualhurt.com, where there's a whole section on sexless marriage under couples when your partner refuses. There's a whole section there where bring the website up and say, honey, um, could we talk about this? This is pretty good. This guy seems to know what he's talking about. And this is kind of how I'm feeling. So sometimes using, some other third party and using that as a topic of discussion, can be helpful to approach the topic. And again, I'm not mad at you, sweetie. I love you to death. I vow to be with you. I'm not mad. I'm just a little confused, like to having to hold from this day forward. What happened to the having to hold? I'm not getting held. I want to be held. So realizing that their love language makes them maybe predisposed where that's important to them. Maybe it's not important to you, But it's important to them. Well, they come first. That's what
Yes,
love
I like that
is.
we finally talk about this subject, and I cannot wait to touch another sexual hurt with you again, Dr. Sam. But we want to wish you all the best. We want to
Well,
also
thank
remind
you.
the viewers to please check out his website. Please check out his expertise and also reach out to Dr. Sam because he does know what he's talking about. And there's lots of things that we need to discuss that we are all silent about. So we wish you all the best, Dr. Sam.
Well, thank you. I love your show, and thanks for having me on again.